Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Lithuanian Embassy in Washington, D.C., where we have the honor of talking to Lithuania's Vice Minister of Defense, Jeglinskas. Sir, thanks very much for the time.
Well, great to be here.
You were at AUSA, and I have to say you have an extraordinary distinction of having attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, 2003 graduate. You went back, and as somebody who was born and raised in Lithuania, went back to Lithuania. You were a platoon commander, then you were a senior intelligence analyst. In between there, I think you also went to Georgetown University. You spent some time on Wall Street. Then you went to Columbia University for your MBA, and then you went back home, and now you're in your current job. Talk to us a little bit about the Zapad 17 military exercise. 100,000 troops, Russian troops, conducted in Belarus, but also in Russian territory, and focused pretty much in your immediate neighborhood. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys observed that the Russians were doing that were new, that were worrying, and how you think both Lithuania as well as the NATO alliance has to adapt to what the Russians managed to demonstrate.
It's a good question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we hear about the Zapad 2017 is that, well, nothing happened, right? No aggression, no invasion happened, so we should all calm down, go back to our couches and do what we have been doing before. I think that's probably the biggest misconception, because actually we noticed several things. First thing is that the aim of the exercise was very clear based on the actions by the Russian and Belarusian troops. The true objective was an invasion of a NATO country. So yes, nothing really happened, but what they're practicing was very clear. The second thing we noticed is that, again, nothing surprising, I think, at least for a lot of analysts who follow the region, is that Kaliningrad Oblast has reached an unprecedented level of sophistication, and in terms of quality and quantity of the weapons that the Russians have there. So I think it's both of these are signs that things have changed, their side have increased their sophistication, their capability, and with an aim and objective, I think it's very clear that we should be worried. Now, the third thing that we've noticed was that basically that any possible military action would be accompanied by an element, a suite of other actions, including cyber warfare, information warfare, using social media and various other, so this is called new generation or fifth generation or whatever we call it. But it's a complex war space at the moment, and I think it's what we've seen was very clear, that we need to be prepared, that deterrent actions that we've took upon in the past several years by adding, a NATO battalion, the enhanced forward presence in the Baltics and Poland, is actually the right thing to do. This is something that increases our security because it deters the enemy, and I think we need to do more rather than less of that in the future.
What do you think? What more does the alliance have to do, though? There has been a concern in the Baltics. There's been a concern in Poland. There's satisfaction about the reassurance measures that have taken place with the Warsaw goals. I mean, I think it's very impressive that in a year there is actual real capability being deployed. But there are still concerns, and as you said, this exercise had a very specific message to deliver, that we can do a snap exercise, put lots of troops, put lots of munitions, whether in artillery, whether in electronic warfare. What more, as a NATO member, what more do you think the alliance has to do to further deter Russia as Russia continues to escalate the level, the sophistication of its capabilities, and it's also operational readiness that they're demonstrating, that they can put large numbers of troops, to have that logistical backing, to have that kind of firepower concentrated against potential NATO allies?
Yeah. Well, I think the enhanced forward presence is a great deterrent, as I mentioned before, but again, it's focused mostly on the land forces. Now, the next step in this direction would be to expand the scope of the EFP to include maritime assets, air assets, include a really full scope of activities. Now, another element would be truly kind of logistics-focused elements, including creating some sort of people call it Schengen, military Schengen zone, right, or some sort of simplified procedures for troops to move east when the day X comes. And I think this is something that a lot of the military forums at NATO level has been worked on. I think that the kind of more strategic element would be coming up and approving the defense plans of the Baltics and the whole eastern flank, really, of NATO. And that's required at the highest level of NATO, at the heads of state sort of level. But I think that's something, if we have those defense plans, then of course what sort of sprinkles from there is all the operational and tactical elements that would need to be built up in order for these plans to be workable. So I think that's would be the kind of two priorities I would say are for the future.
We talked to General Ben Hodges, who's the commander of U.S. Army Europe. He has been long advocating this sort of military Schengen zone. When we spoke to him, he said, look, enormous progress has been made on that. How much progress is being made, and what more can countries do? Because, as he said, some of it is EU regulations, some of them are national regulations when it comes to military units rolling across their borders. As one of the countries that's worked very, very hard to reduce these barriers to be able to get this kind of capability into the country, what more can countries do? And how long will it be before there's going to be total open military borders that is so vital to the defense of the alliance in the event that something happens and happens very quickly, which is what the Russian intent is?
And General Hodges is a very sort of clear taxonomy of the way he talks about this capability. He talks about the speed of recognition, meaning talking about clear intelligence and speed of intelligence of coming in, the speed of decision. We're talking about a political sort of decisions that need to be made. But the speed of assembly, what you mentioned, is absolutely essential. And I think the key part that we've done, I think we went a national route. We changed certain laws, certain procedures that at the moment it really is a call away. You just need a call, and then in less than 24 hours, any military shipment, truck or whatever that comes, I think is able to cross the border and to arrive to the place of assembly. Now, speaking of other countries, I think the work needs to be done nationally. There's other states that are more federal than others. So let's say, moving from Western Germany to Eastern Germany can be quite tricky. So I think but these are internal matters need to be done. I think at the kind of European level, I don't think we can ever expect it to be a truly Schengen military zone, because Schengen military zone means you just walk across the border. There is no borders, and there's no guards. You just walk by. I think, but what we want it to be, the true objective should be really: you call, you get a permit, you notify the authorities, and you get a permit. It's all done, say, within the 24 hours, so that the troops from, let's say, Western Germany can arrive to the Suwalki Gap in less than 5 to 7 days rather than 3 weeks.
Let me ask you the question about gaps in NATO capability. There has been a lot of effort to try to address some of the capability gaps. General Hodges worked on, for example, the upgunned version of the Stryker armored vehicle. There's short range and air defense and a whole bunch of other things that are being worked on. But from your standpoint, if when you're talking to the senior NATO leadership, when you're talking, what are some of the things that you're highlighting as somebody who's right on the border? Hey guys, here are the top 3 things from our perspective the alliance has to be beefing up. What's top on your agenda of things, capabilities that the Russians have that the alliance has to work, that we have gaps that we have to address?
Well, I think first of all is that something you mentioned is the air defense. I think the anti-air defense, the A2AD systems in Kaliningrad are very sophisticated. They are sophisticated not just in Kaliningrad but also in other parts of Russia and Belarus. So I think we need to have some sort of capability to neutralize that. And now, of course, the air defense component within each of the countries, let's say in the Baltics, we're for example, Lithuania is procuring mid-range air defense systems. This is a joint Norwegian-American product. We will be receiving that in about, let's say about 2 years from now. I think we just signed a contract. We're signing a contract this week. I think this will enhance the capability. Is it fully? Are we fully secure with that air defense system? Probably not. These systems need to be integrated. So I think that's the second part, is one is air defense. The second thing is integration of all of that air defense across the Baltics and Poland and essentially within the whole alliance, so that everybody's able to see the same picture. I think once we have that, I think this really enables arrival of troops. It de-risks situations for allied troops when they come. I think the third big thing is really creating infrastructure and sort of landing ports within Baltic states, and I'm talking about from Lithuanian side, of course, is creating the training area so that we have more troops come in, and they don't just sit, they training, they practice, they have the right the places to live, they have places to hang out, they have also a very clear role what they're going to be doing here, meaning integrating them into our defense units, at least for the exercise, for the time of exercise.